Bob Cooney with me now here. Happy New Year, pal. How are you?
I'm doing good, Mike. Happy New Year. How you doing?
Well, you saw more wins in 2016 almost than you saw all of last year combined. It's got to make your job a little easier.
Yeah, it's like I tell people, when the team's winning, people are happier, so they'll talk more, and there's more storylines, and it does make our lives easier, as you very well know. When things are going well in a sports scene or a sports landscape, it's easier to talk about for you. It's easier to write about for me. So that's positive is always good in our professions.
Well, okay, so they got 9 wins, and they're 9-20, whatever they are. I mean, it's not a great record, but are you starting to see steps in the right direction? Is there enough growth? Have they moved in the right direction enough this season so far to say, you know what, this thing's moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I think when you say that, you have to look at individuals, and that's the only way you can look at it. So who are you looking at here? You're looking at Joel Embiid first and foremost. And God, I wrote it today. I cannot believe through 23 games, after missing 2.5 years of basketball, playing with a body that is 3 inches taller and 35 pounds heavier from the last time he played, I can't believe how good this guy is already. And I think there is a tremendous amount of rust on him. I think there's a tremendous amount of improvement that's going to be gained by him. I am in awe, and most of the NBA is in awe of what this kid has done already. So that's the first thing you have to look at. Now you're looking at the next big storyline is, the big matchups and stuff. And I wrote after only a couple of games, the best matchup that fits Joel Embiid is Ersan Ilyasova. So now you have to decide, do you start Ilyasova? Do you try to sign Ilyasova through next year? After this year, do you try to sign him to a big term? Or is that just the model that you have to get? Maybe you want to go younger through the draft, but get a model. See, a stretch 4 is best for Joel Embiid. And, of course, you have Simmons coming back, and you're going to have to fill in some pieces. You just talked about draft picks. So I think all in all, I think things have improved, and they're only going to get better.
Bob Cooney, Philadelphia Daily News. Do you think that Brett has been kind of forced or told, hey, we need you to play Okafor?
I would say it's probably a joint decision. I called for, and I know I said it on your show also, I called for them that they had to play those two together to see what they had, because I thought offensively it would be a great mismatch if used properly. I understood the deficiencies defensively, but I thought you had something there that might have been different, that might have been, good to see. They did try it. I don't think Brett is or was a fan of trying it. So then I started thinking, well, maybe they're just showcasing Okafor, and that very well could have been what they were doing. I don't think he's forced. I honestly do think that he and Colangelo sit down. I know. They sit down, they talk things out together, and they decide moving forward what they have to do. And moving forward, what they have to do is get some trade value for either Okafor or Noel.
What you think of those two guys? No, Noel and Embiid.
Together?
Yeah. I know it was brief, but it seems like my read is, you're there. It seems like Joel is much more excited about that pairing than he is the other one.
Yeah, because I think the other one takes him out of his comfort zone. I think Nerlens Noel allows him to be a strong post player, and then when he wants to pop out, Noel is smart enough to get where he belongs. Joel Okafor is a wonderful offensive player, but we know where that offense has to come from, and you can't have two of those guys down low clogging up the lane. So I think there gets some frustration inside of Embiid when he's on the floor with Okafor, and he's so restricted on what he has to do. So I also, talking to Joel the other day, he's very excited defensively of what those two could do, because it allows Embiid to stay at the rim, be that rim protector, and Noel is quick enough to go out and guard some fours. Or if Embiid finds himself out there, Noel is a very good defender of coming from the weak side and blocking shots. So it'll be interesting to watch those guys paired together a little bit more.
Was there any reason why Noel got very little time in the second half and that they got away from playing those two guys together?
Yeah, part of me always goes to, I think Brett Brown wants to win games. And putting Embiid and Noel together, it's still in its experimental stage. So, now you're trying something that you don't know much about while you're still trying to win a game. So your natural progression, if you want to win the game, what do? You put out the lineup that's best. The lineup that's best is Embiid and Ilyasova. So that's kind of why he leaned towards that. I thought there was a couple times he could have used him, particularly down the end on a defensive series at the end of the game when Rubio hit the three. I thought you could have used Noel out there, being he's such a good defender. But I think that's the reasoning. I think it's a comfort thing, and it's shown on paper and by eye that Ilyasova and Embiid are simply the best talent out there.
Bob Cooney, Philadelphia Daily News. Sixers with almost a monumental type of loss last night. They had a 26-point lead. Actually, I guess it wouldn't be monumental when you watch this team over the last 3 years. You kind of would expect them to figure out a way to lose that. But how much was winning a game like that a step?
Yeah, I think it was a step in that if you watch the play that won the game. Brett Brown has come under a lot of scrutiny for his calls late in games, offensively and defensively, and just earlier the Sixers had a 3-point lead, had the ball with over 30 seconds to go, and he doesn't put the only point guard on the bench. He doesn't put in the game, and they wound up not even. They either turned it over, or didn't get a shot. Embiid got his shot blocked on a bad offensive series, so there was question about that. Minnesota calls timeout, and like I said earlier, they don't put Noel. He doesn't put Noel on the floor for a defensive series, and then he makes a great call at the end of the game to win the game. So I think it's big in that it relieves Brett Brown. It shows the players that he knows what he's doing late in games. He can draw things up and figure things out. These young guys have to learn how to win, Mike. I can't say that enough. People think once you get the talent, everything's going to be okay. It takes a little more than that in the NBA. You have to learn how to win. You have to know how to win. And then, obviously the talent helps that to happen more often. But learning how to win in this league is awfully big.
There's no doubt about it. He said it last night. It's hard to win in the NBA with a bunch of 20-year-olds, right? I mean, that's evident when you look across the team they played last night. That team is very talented. And you look at their record, and they're right where Philadelphia is. And they might be, a year ahead of where the Sixers are.
Yeah, and they have and not a knock on Brett Brown, but they have a proven coach in Tom Thibodeau. So it's not like, they're rebuilding with a coach that's never coached in the league before and all that. Tom Thibodeau's he's been around the block more than a few times. And yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is, Mike. It's just young talent trying to figure out how to win in this league. And when you have a Towns and you have a Wiggins and those type of guys to build with, you would think winning would come a little bit easier, but it just last night was a perfect example. It's just not the case, and I talked to Thibodeau about it yesterday morning, and he just said it's just something that these guys have to learn night in and night out. Everything he was saying about his team directly relates to the 76ers also.
Hey, in 30 minutes last night, are we going to start to see that increase, or is it just kind of flexible? Where is the minute restriction at this point?
Yeah, it's still at 28. I think what happened last night, Mike, or I know what happened last night, was they had Okafor on the floor, and that 26-point lead dwindled pretty quickly. And I saw somebody put out on Twitter when I was at the game, I wasn't tracking it, that when Okafor was on the floor, they got outscored like 17-2. So Brett had to go to Embiid. I think it was like at the 6-minute mark, something like that, where he probably was looking to get him in at the 5 or 4, but he had to stop the bleeding, so he got him back in there. We asked Brett about it the other day. 28 is still where they are. Until somebody else comes up and gives him more minutes, that's what he's going to stick with. Ideally, I asked Brett about this. If Embiid's your starting center and he has no restrictions, how much would you usually play a starting center? And he said 36 minutes for Embiid. That would probably be his night in and night out on normal circumstances. So I don't know when they'll up it. It's hard to say. There was one time last night, like they had to call a timeout simply because Embiid was exhausted. He probably had like a 4-minute straight run with no whistles, and he was exhausted. So, it still seems like that's a little bit of a factor.
Yeah, I remember that, and it happened the other night too when Embiid wasn't there. Noel played and Okafor played, and that was the night where who was it? Went on like an 18-2 run. Utah, they just were raining threes. But you were like,
right.
How about putting Noel back in the game? Noel got you the lead, And, same thing last night. At that point, if you don't want to go back to Embiid, what about just taking Okafor out and going to Noel? Those two guys played 11 and 10 minutes. I mean, at some point, something's got to have to change for those two guys, you would have think. I mean, I can't imagine they're too happy. And Noel seems like he's actually handling it better now. You don't see or hear a lot from Okafor. I don't know how he feels about this, but you might have better insight on that.
Yeah, obviously I don't think Okafor is all that happy. You're talking about a guy that's been a star his whole life, who's never been asked to play defense his whole life, probably never really taught to play defense, and now that's the big shortcoming that's keeping him off the floor. So sure, he's not happy. He wants to be out there playing 30 minutes a night. He thinks he's a 20 to 25 point scorer in the league. He could be if he got those big minutes, but his defensive deficiencies are just holding him back now. I just really think it's a case with Noel. They're going to have to integrate him a little bit more. I still think he's not in great basketball shape, having been out for as much as he was. And then when he came back, the Sixers in the middle of the season, you're not having like good, long, hard practices because travel and game scheduling just doesn't allow it. So there's not a lot of time for him to get on the floor and get himself back into great basketball shape. So I think Brett Brown is kind of easing him back in. But also to go back to the point that I made before, Brett Brown wanted to win that game last night, and the best way to do that is the best pairing on the floor. And quite simply, by far, it's Joel Embiid and Ersan Ilyasova.
Yeah, Ersan has expressed that he likes it here and would like to maybe come back. Do you see him as a necessary kind of veteran piece that they should target to bring back?
Yeah, you'd have to look at the money. I was just talking to an NBA executive about an hour ago. You'd have to look at the money. I mean, is Ersan Ilyasova worth $15 million a year? My gut is like, oh my God, no way. But with the way the money's going up and all that might be what he's commanding. If ideally, I would think if through the draft you can get someone like him, one of those top 5, 6 picks that's a really, really good player and is foreshadowed to pan out to a really good NBA player. If you can get a stretch 4 with one of those picks, well, then maybe you let Ersan Ilyasova walk. But I think it's incumbent on the team that you have to make that position a stretch position because we see how good Joel Embiid is on the floor when he's paired with a stretch 4. So either you bring back Ilyasova, and now your floor position is set with Ilyasova as your starter and Saric as your 4 off the bench, or you draft someone just like him and you mold that guy into a player like Ersan Ilyasova.
Yeah, keep in mind, people out there, Ilyasova has been traded many times. It's weird because he just seems like he hasn't fit in to other places. I guess that kind of indicates how good Embiid is that, it has allowed Ilyasova to kind of excel in this stop for him.
Yeah, it's funny, and also talking to that executive today, we talked about this years ago. We were in Milwaukee together, and Ilyasova was with Milwaukee at the time, and I said, I like that kid. I like the way he plays, and it's still true. He gets you rebounds. He's pretty good defensively. He's good at drawing charges. Loose balls he gets to. He makes that extra pass. When he's in the game, Mike, fans out there, when you're watching, watch how much better the ball moves when Ersan Ilyasova is in the game. It's almost like it's contagious with his teammates. He finds the extra pass, and his teammates want to do it also. And it's impressive the way this team plays when he's in the game. So going back to your early statement of how's this team doing moving forward, I think they found something there in a style of play that they have to play.
One guy that's been around for a couple of these years is Covington in the Booze, and I think people look at his shooting and just say, all right, enough. But is he a guy that is around a team when they start to make that next step? Is he the kind of guy, he's one of those, 3D kind of guys, he shoots the 3, defends pretty well, but the fans sometimes don't look at that. Do you think he is a piece on a team that is ready to take that step to becoming a winning team?
Yeah, if he is, he's an off the bench guy, I think, and that's not a knock on Covington. He came here with no promise of being an NBA player, either from the Sixers nor by his play. They gave him a shot. They saw a shooter in him, something that the team sorely lacked, and they gave him a chance. But the great thing that you can say about Robert Covington is that he just didn't rely on that. Brett Brown's all about development. He developed the defensive game, and he's become a pretty good defender. And you alluded to it earlier, the way he stopped Wiggins last night and kept him intact. And if he can do that, if he can knock down an occasional 3, if he can play some defense, to me, on a good team, that's a really nice role player to have coming off the bench because he's not being so much counted on for offense like he is as a starter playing 30 minutes. If he comes off the bench, all you're asked to do is hit an occasional shot. There's not that pressure of having to score to help your team win, and you can always use a perimeter defender coming off the bench.
Any update on Simmons that you have? Have you seen him? Does he seem like he's got good spirits? Is he walking? What do you got?
He is upright. He is walking. I did see him smile from a distance the other day, Mike. He came out after practice or at the end of practice when they let us in, and he took a couple of shots, I'll say, and rebounded the ball like standing there like when other guys were shooting and stuff. So he is visible, and that's a big thing. We asked Brett about a timetable. He said there is no timetable, but there also is nothing that has gone backwards. There's no setbacks at all. He said he's moving along just as they hoped in his recovery so far, but reiterated that there is no timetable yet. So I think the hope for fans and the wish for fans and the timetable that I could glean from when I talked to doctors right as it happened and right after he had the surgery for that Jones fracture, the hope would probably have been late January, early February. But that's if everything goes well, and that's not taking the human aspect into consideration of, well, this isn't just a normal guy that we're going to put back on the field. This is a number one pick from this year. They're going to be sure as hell that he's fully healed before they throw him back out there.
All right, Bob Cooney, Sixers in Boston on Friday night, one of the great American cities up there, and you can hear the game on 97.3 ESPN. Cooney in Boston sounds like a good time.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be on a plane this time tomorrow, headed up to one of my favorite towns on the tour.
Good stuff, pal. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Mike. Thanks, buddy.